Hey, what's going on, everybody? I'm really excited to bring you what I think is going to be the best Torment 10 speed farming spec for Witch Doctor in patch 2.4, and this is really a build that's been around since the beginning of the 2.4 PTR, when Legacy of Nightmares was giving 800% damage per ancient item, and so it was kind of a no-brainer to stack as much movement speed as possible, and then run through the rifts with Wormwood, passively casting Locust Swarm for you, and pretty much instantly killing everything. Well, Legacy of Nightmares has been nerfed, but the build is still very, very solid, mixed with some pets, and even we're going to run Firewalkers in this build getting buffed by Legacy of Nightmares. So, again, the basic concept is just to have a good amount of movement speed and then deal damage passively as you're moving through the rifts to maximize your speed and efficiency. And I was going to wait till the end of the PTR to make this video just to make sure all of the changes were, set in stone. But I've been seeing some builds pop up that are similar in concept, and so I wanted to go ahead and make this video now to show you guys the proper way to build it. So let's get right into it. First up, we have the abilities. Locust Swarm, Searing Locust. This is really the core of the build. We're going to run the Vile Hive on our character to get the Pestilence rune, so it'll jump very quickly, and Locust Swarm, Searing Locust is just the highest damage rune, along with the Quetzalcoatl in the cube to effectively double its damage. And this on its own will really take care of the majority of the trash. And the biggest thing is you just want to make sure that you don't run too far away from the enemies before they die, because if you get too far away, then Locust Swarm will stop ticking. So just make sure the enemies are dead before you run away, but you do want to be continuously moving in this build. And once you get to a certain gear and damage threshold, honestly, the majority of trash dies pretty much instantly anyways. Summon Zombie Dogs, Burning Dogs. You're going to see a lot of people running this build with the Tall Man's Finger in the cube to make for a big dog, which is a good option, but from what I've seen, each one of these Zombie Dogs, which are going to have 5 out because of our passives, I've had them fully buffed up, critting for like 700-800 million, and that's not even factoring in the aura, the burning aura from them. Now, something to keep in mind is that they've hotfixed the PTR, but they haven't patched it yet, and I guess they need to patch it to update the tooltips, but they have buffed Summon Zombie Dogs to 120% damage at the base, and then the Burning Aura is dealing 40% weapon damage as well. That brings us to Gargantuan Humongoid. So we're going to run the Short Man's Finger and have 3 smaller Gargantuans, each cleaving for AoE damage, and the Gargantuan's also been buffed to 450% weapon damage on the base rune, and so these cleaves deal just a ton of damage, and also this will proc Bane of the Trapped if you choose to run it in this build. Spirit Walk Severance. This gives 100% extra movement speed on top of the 50% that you already get from Spirit Walk. We're going to run the Engiom in this build, and so basically once you kill that first elite champion or goblin, you're going to have this movement speed the entire rift pretty much. And being in Spirit Walk all the time allows you to run through the mobs to hit them with the little extra damage from Firewalkers, which is pretty nice. Soul Harvest, Soul to Waste. This gives us intelligence per stack as well as 5% increased movement speed per stack and stacks up to 5 times. Fetish Army, Tiki Tortures, some more passive damage from pets. Now, I think the ideal setup would be to have a Hellfire Amulet with a 5th passive being Grave Injustice, and with Grave Injustice and Engiom together, you should have out permanent Fetish Army, I would think, or at least close to it. Now, you don't even have to necessarily run a damage ability in this slot. The rest of your setup is going to do a lot of damage, but I just figured I might as well have as much damage as possible for elites and champions and the bosses for efficiency. You could also go with Horrify Stalker here for a little bit more movement speed if you wanted to. Midnight Feast is going to buff our Zombie Dogs and Gargantuan damage by 50%, as well as give us 1 extra Zombie Dog. Gruesome Feast will give 10% intelligence per stack, stacking to up to 5 times. And in a build like this where you're really moving so quickly and killing so fast, you have 5 stacks the majority of the time. Pierce the Veil for 20% more damage to everything. You could run Confidence Ritual here, but with Pestilence spreading all over the map, I think Pierce the Veil is a little bit better. And then Fierce Loyalty for more movement speed and 1 additional Zombie Dog. Now again, for the 5th passive, if you're running a Ancient Hellfire Amulet, which currently I do not have one, I'd recommend the Grave Injustice. Like I said, with the Engiom, you should have permanent Fetish Army. Another option would be, again, the Confidence Ritual for more damage while in melee range. Next, the gear. And again, this is based around the Legacy of Nightmare's revamped ring set, which is the Wailing Host and Litany of the Undaunted. And this reads, while this is your only item set bonus, every ancient item you have equipped increases your damage dealt by 100% and reduces your damage taken by 4%. So obviously you want to have all ancient items if possible, and it doesn't make much sense to run a two-hander in this build, mainly because you're going to right off the bat lose one ancient item by not having the offhand, and you're going to lose stats on top of it. Now, ideal rolls on these rings would be intelligence, crit damage, crit chance, and a socket, but it's more important that the rings are ancient than to be well rolled. You'd rather have an ancient, poorly rolled set ring here than a well rolled, non-ancient set ring. And then we've got the Litany there, which is not as well rolled with the attack speed. We'd rather have crit chance. And then as far as the weapon, I'm running the Engiom currently, which is going to give us pretty much that permanent severance once you kill that first elite champion or goblin, which I really like personally. Some other options would be Sunkeeper would be fantastic. Even the Devastator, which you can craft, which gives you fire damage, would be nice. And a Sacred Harvester to give you more stacks of Soul Harvest would also be very, very good. And then the Vile Hive, which is going to give a nice multiplier for Locust Swarm as well as the Pestilence Rune. You want Int, Vit, Crit Chance, and Locust Swarm damage there. You could also potentially go maybe a CDR roll or an Elite damage roll over the Vitality if you didn't need the extra toughness. As far as boots, I'm running Firewalkers. Burn the ground you walk on, dealing 323% weapon damage each second. Now, with the Engiom version, you're going to be in Spirit Walk the majority of the time, so you're not getting body blocked very often, and it allows you to utilize these Firewalkers, which that damage gets buffed by the Legacy of Nightmares. And so you'll see it ticking for, I think mine ticks for around a couple 100 million, which is a little bit extra damage to make sure you're killing the trash as you're running away from the enemies and things like that. Now, other options, and you're going to see a lot of, is Illusory Boots. Illusory Boots allows you to just basically run through everything all the time. Very good option if that's what you want to run. You could also run Ice Climbers to take care of Frozen and things like that. Next up, the pants. Hexing Pants of Mr. Yan. Your resource generation and damage is increased by 25% while moving and decreased by 20% while standing still. As you see, my damage is about 2 million while standing still, and then it bumps up to 3 million while I'm moving around. And again, like we've already talked about, we're going to be moving constantly in this build. You're only going to stop to possibly like recast your Fetish Army, or at times you're going to want to cast the Gargantuans right on top of some elites or champions. And the other thing you're going to be doing potentially is stopping to pop open a chest or hit a armor rack or a weapon rack for the Harrington Waist Guard, which is going to give you a huge damage buff every time you do that. So for the most part, the playstyle is going to be just running around constantly looking for chests and weapon racks, dead bodies, anything that you can click on to get this extra damage buff for 10 seconds. As far as the chest piece, the Aquila Cuirass, while above 79% primary resource, all damage taken is reduced by 50%, which we're going to have this damage reduction constantly. We've got Nemesis Bracers. More elites and champions means more Death's Breath, which the majority of Torment farming is for keys and Death's Breath. So I pretty much always run Nem Bracers personally. There are definitely other options here. You could run the Crims Bracers to eliminate knockback and things of that nature. You could go for the brand new Bracers that gives you damage reduction per stack of Soul Harvest. There's a few options there. I think Nem Bracers are the best, though. Unfortunately, mine are pretty poorly rolled. Ideal stats would be probably fire damage, intelligence, vitality, and crit chance. This is just the best ancient amulet that I have right now. On the amulet, you want int, crit damage, crit chance, and a socket. Ideally, like we've already talked about, you're going to want a Hellfire amulet that's ancient. Mask of Jerem, 98% more pet damage, running tons of pets in the build. Really nice damage buff. Next, the Corruption Shoulders. Now, they basically took the pickup radius from the Profane Pauldrons and put it on the Corruption Shoulders. And so you can get a nice, easy, ancient, craftable pair of shoulders this way. And in a build for Torment farming that can't utilize Thing of the Deep or the Avarice band for pickup radius, this is without a doubt the best set of shoulders to run. Getting that 7 pickup radius is really, really nice for Gruesome Feast. and for picking up the globes from elites and champions from far away. And if you are lucky enough to have an ancient Hellfire Amulet with Grave Injustice as well, getting that extra pickup radius. A lot of synergy there. If you just can't craft these, or you don't have them, or you don't want to run them, some other options would be the Deathwatch Mantle, which when you take damage, you have a chance to deal damage back to the enemies, which is pretty good. That damage does get buffed by the Legacy of Nightmares. And then the Pauldrons of the Skeleton King for a second life are also fine. As far as gloves, running Tasker and Theos with all these pets, I found this actually ends up being the best as far as speed goes. Now, Mage Fist makes a lot of sense too. It's going to be buffing the Locust Swarm and things of that nature, but with running the Cold Gargantuans, I like Tasker and Theo. If you're running more of just a straight fire version, then Mage Fist may be the way to go, but again, from my testing, I like the Taskers a good bit. One other thing to keep in mind with the belt too is the Hodge Wrap is really nice for proccing Bane of the Trapped on everything. It basically makes your Locust Swarm slow, and to get that Bane of the Trapped on everything. But I still think Harrington Wasteguard is the better option. Potentially you could do something with running Harrington Wasteguard in the cube and running Hodge Wrap on your character if you really wanted to. As far as legendary gems go, running the Zai's Stone of Vengeance, more damage the farther away you are from enemies, and as we're running away from the enemies, the Locust Swarm will start to deal more damage. And then we've got the Bane of the Powerful. After you kill a elite, you're going to get a damage increase and then even more damage versus elites as the secondary effect. Now the third gem, I'm running Bane of the Trapped currently. Again, if you're running the Hodge Wrap version, Bane of the Trapped is a no-brainer. But in this version, you're either going to be in melee range or it's getting procced by the Cold Gargantuans. And that's enough for me to run it, but another option for damage would be Enforcer. But the Enforcer does stack additively with Mask of Jerem, so I don't know how great that really is. And then you could also go for Boon of the Hoarder for more gold and more movement speed, potentially. Kind of just depends there. I still think the Bane of the Trapped is fine, though, with the Gargantuans cleaving and hitting a bunch of enemies. Next, the Kanai's Cube. In the weapon slot, the Wormwood, there's really no other choice here. This is going to cast our Locust Swarm for us as we run through the mobs. The Quetzalcoatl is effectively going to double the damage of the Locust Swarm, and then the Short Man's Finger for the 3 smaller Gargantuans that deal more damage. Again, you could go with the Tall Man's Finger here if you prefer the big dog to the small Gargantuans. Paragon Points. Get as much movement speed as you need and then go Intelligence. Offense-wise, crit chance, crit damage, attack speed, and then CDR. Defense, armor percentage, life percentage, all resist, life regen. Utility, you want area damage and gold find, then life on hit, and then resource cost reduction. As far as the follower, either run the Enchantress or the Scoundrel for more damage. You really don't need the heals or the mana regen from the Templar in a speed build like this. Honestly, in a lot of the runs, I didn't even have a follower out, and it really doesn't affect clear speeds very much. I'm going to leave you guys with one last rift. In this rift, I ran Illusory Boots instead of Firewalkers and Confidence Ritual instead of Gruesome Feast, just to show you guys kind of what that looks like in one rift. So anyways, hope you enjoyed the video. This is extremely fast, and it's going to be my go-to spec as long as things stay the same as they are right now for patch 2.4 for speed farming Torment. So thanks very much for watching, guys. Again, I hope you enjoyed it, and don't forget to like and subscribe if you did, and I'll see you next time.